The United States closes the summer of 2025 with wins against the almighty Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, Saudi Arabia missing some key players, and Guatemala. A draw with Costa Rica where we advanced on penalty shootouts, and then losses to Turkey, Mexico, and Switzerland, which is all quite concerning considering we are less than 1 year away from the 2026 World Cup. Then you may say, well, we were missing plenty of our players. This wasn't our A team. All right, so let's talk about the A team. They became the first host nation to get grouped in the Copa America back in 2024. And then in 2025, the A team finished fourth in the CONCACAF Nations League behind Mexico, Panama, and Canada. So let me ask you this. Is it time to panic? Did we gain anything out of this summer? Was it a complete waste of time? And what the heck is Mauricio Pochettino doing? Let's talk about all of that. Hello. If you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today we have our camp recap, or shall I say, our summer recap. After every U.S. men's national team camp, we bring in Adam from USMNT Stan on X, and we essentially talk about the things that happened. We talk about players that had their stocks go up, players that had their stocks go down, and boy, there's a lot of players that had their stocks go down. That was sinking like the Titanic. It was ugly. And you can let me know in the comment section down below. One big positive from this camp, if there is any. One big negative. One player that had their stocks go up. One player that had their stocks go down. And yes, we're going to talk about Mauricio Pochettino quite a bit. Now, if you haven't already, don't forget to drop a like in this video because it makes me happy. And covering the United States men's national team is exhausting, so it's the least you can do. Thank you very much for that. I'm not going to be requesting during the video, and let's roll the intro and start the episode. Okay, we're back with our U.S. men's national team camp recap. Well, today it's more of a summer recap. We're back with Adam. He's always here for these recaps. And I think the main question to you, just to kick things off, we want to be positive, but it's been very difficult over the past 12 months. I'm trying, and we're going to try throughout the episode to get some positives out of this, which I'm sure there are a few. But again, anyone calling us negative for the sake of calling us negative, you tell us, like, have the results been good? With that said, Adam, how you doing?
Oh, man, I'm good. And I'm going to be, like always, Tack, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to try not be negative or positive. I'm just going to try and be honest about what I'm seeing and feeling as a fan. And that's all we can do, right? I mean, like, listen, we're fans. This is a fan account. We want to break it down and analyze a little bit. But at the same time, we've got to speak from our hearts a bit, Tack. And like there hasn't for a year and a half, there really hasn't been a lot of positive, honestly. Like, you know, the Jamaica camp, I guess that was one that sticks out to me where after there was maybe a little bit of promise and we were like, okay. But,
it might have been Jamaica.
From Nations League 2023 on, 2024, I can't remember. Well, it's been so long. Was that 2024 when we won? Yeah, I guess before Copa.
Yeah, we won, but you got to remember that we were 30 seconds away from losing to Jamaica in the semis.
Oh, no, I know. I know. But I'm just saying, like, that's probably as positive as it gets, right? Like, that camp, there hasn't been much since BJ left us. You know, Saint BJ.
Yeah, we probably needed him back. But, Adam, you just don't understand the sport, right? Because if Ajiman was a bit more clinical and more clean as a striker, he would be playing at Barcelona. Landon literally told us that in his podcast with Tim Howard. So you just don't understand the sport. Now, just one thing before we even start with the stocks up, stocks down. I saw some takes on X saying that our former players don't understand the game. They're stupid. And this is what I'm going to say. I disagree with that. Landon Donovan 100% understands the game. Clint Dempsey, Tim Howard, they 100% understand the game. When you see these bad takes, it's not because they don't understand the game. I just think they don't watch these players for their clubs, and I think they kind of half-watch the U.S. men's national team. That's my opinion. There is no way, like that is not a fair assessment to say any of these players that were incredible players They don't understand the game. They definitely understand the game. I just don't think they follow the game these days. I think that's the reason why you see a lot of stupid takes from former players, just to make that clear, okay?
And they're analyzing in a bubble, tack, right? Like U.S. soccer, our games, our broadcasts are a bubble, and I think that's what you're getting at, right? Is it's like they're analyzing in this bubble of CONCACAF games, and that's all we've played for 5 years, right? So it's like, yeah, like in that context, Christian Roldan is fine, and Sebastian Berhalter's fine, and Ajimong, I still don't
Not
think he's
fine.
fine. I don't actually even think he's fine, but and that's, I don't know. So and honestly, I do think there's some connection between. I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I'm not. If you follow me, you know that. But like, I do think there's a connection between Fox is broadcasting these games and hiring these guys, and they have to promote U.S. soccer, right? Like ratings next summer are dependent on, in big part in the U.S. are in a large part going to be relying on us doing well, right? That's going to boost ratings here a lot. And there is like, it's a product, right? They're selling a product. And so I do think there's a bit of that going on as well.
Yes. And then there's also like just the fact that some don't follow the game. Because, for example, the zone that has nothing to do with U.S. soccer, nothing to do with Major League Soccer, nothing to do with the U.S. men's national team,
right.
The commentary of a freaking Bayern game fell for a fake Sebastian Berhalter rumor to Bayern Munich. That actually happened. So, like I said, I don't think that they don't understand the game. I just don't think they follow the game nowadays. They retired, and honestly, it makes sense to a certain extent.
Sure.
But then probably don't work as a pundit, right? Probably don't do that if you're not going to do your work. Regardless, let's start the episode. We've talked a lot about this. United States Summer. We kicked off the summer with 2 losses. One to Turkey, 2-1, where, by the way, it was 2-1, but we played very poorly. And then Switzerland, 4-0, which the result speaks for itself. We were very poor. Then we defeated Trinidad and Tobago, 5-0. I still didn't think things were good when we beat them. That was a very, very, very bad team, but we beat them. Then we beat Saudi Arabia, that was missing many of their players. Some of them were in the Club World Cup, very important players that play for Al Hilal. They had a lot of U23 guys. We beat them 1-0. Okay. Then we barely beat Haiti 2-1. That was also not a good result on itself, right? Even though it was a win. After that, we go to this one here, the quarterfinals, where we tied Costa Rica 2-2. They were also missing plenty of players. And sure, we were also missing many of our guys. Regardless, we probably should be beating these opponents by a lot more. That just kind of shows the level of the players that were here. We tied Costa Rica, beat them on penalty kicks. Matt Freese put on a show during penalty shootouts. We beat Guatemala 2-1, where we kind of defended for our lives in the second half. It was pretty bad. They had 20 shots. And then ultimately, we lost to Mexico 2-1, which I think the reason it didn't get ugly was because we got the early goal. We got an early goal with Chris Richards. We defended, I would say, we invited Mexico too much, but we didn't defend poorly in this game. I thought we defended much better than every other game. Mexico got 2 goals. I think if Mexico scored the first and we had to open up to attack them, probably would have been 2-3-0 if that happened. Nevertheless, we lost to Mexico 2-1. Making it to the Gold Cup final, out of the teams we faced, we should have made it there. We essentially lost to every team that was decent. Not even good, decent teams. I would say Switzerland's a good team. Turkey's decent. Mexico's decent. We lost them. And we beat teams that are incredibly bad, actually. Teams that don't get out, most don't qualify to the World Cup, and the ones that do won't get out of the group stage. So, Adam, that's a recap of the camp. We usually start with the stocks up. And we're going to start the stocks up. And since I talked a lot already, I'm going to let you start, because I am a very kind host. Some might say I'm the best host, okay? Some might say I'm your favorite host. Adam, give me one stock up of a player. It could be a player in camp. It could be a player that wasn't in camp.
How'd you know?
Well, because usually when the camp is shit, we just give stocks up to everyone that wasn't there. It better not be Pulisic, dude. It better not be Pulisic.
No, definitely not Pulisic. I'll start with the guy who's there. I think, stock up. And to me, it's the most obvious one from this camp, and that's Malik Tillman. I think, very frankly, he came into the summer with a ton of question marks of whether or not he really was even like a rotational roster guy, right? And I leave this summer thinking, okay, that's a guy that if he certainly, especially with the club elevation that's about to happen, if he elevates his game in the next year, I think he's kind of a lock to be on the roster. And then I think with more elevation, I think there starts to become at least conversation about whether or not he could be a guy that impacts the game in a larger way for us, right? I don't foresee him being a starter personally, but it's not out of the question. And that's a much different convo sitting here in mid-July than I think you and I were probably having back in May.
Yeah, I agree with Tillman. I don't think Tillman is the most obvious one. I'll tell you why in a second, but I agree with you that his stock did go up. Depending on who you ask, it didn't go up too much because I think for a good portion of the fan base, I think we all agree that he was a roster lock simply due to the quality that he has. But the U.S. men's national team performances were poor, even against bad opponents, right? He struggled against bad opponents in the past. Now, he wasn't perfect this camp, and honestly, I don't think he was great against Mexico. He was okay. He played better against other opponents, but he was good against every single one of the bad opponents, and he was clearly the most technical player, more vision, and he played defense, which many people question that from him. He did defend a lot.
Even in the Mexico game, right, Tack? Like, I can think off the top of my brain, I can think of 3 moments in the final third that he initiated, right? One being the ball to Ajiman, I don't know, with inside 20 minutes left or something, that Ajiman just kind of like set on and stuttered. And that was a really nice through ball, like quickly played. So once again, I agree. He didn't play spectacular in that game, but he has the quality even in a game like that. If that's a competent 9, that could have been a goal, and that could have been the moment that he created, right? So I agree with your assessment, but I do think even in that game, he showed flashes. And here's my biggest, I think, revelation for what I saw from him is I think there was like fight, tenacity, a defensive want to and desire. And like he brought more than just the ball at my feet. To me in the past, he kind of has had underwhelming games with the ball at his feet, and he's done nothing else, contributed in no other ways, right? And I actually think he contributed in other ways through this camp. Now, does it translate up, right? Because certainly it didn't look like that to me versus Turkey and Switzerland. So I still have questions. Is it going to translate up? But at least, right, he brought it versus these lower level opponents, which is step 1.
And I do think that right now he is a starter, considering Gio Reyna's situation. And we can even talk about Luna. People started to hype up Luna with the Guatemala thing. I think I'm not going to put Luna's stocks up. That's not the other obvious one. I'll talk about the obvious one in a second. I don't think Luna's stock changed. I think what he's done for the national team to fight, and even the quality that he has, he's not a bad player. I thought he became a roster lock, a depth piece. Yeah, and I still think he's that. I think he's not going to be a starter for the national team. I think if Diego Luna is a starter in the World Cup, we're probably in trouble. I don't think he has the quality to be that, but I don't mind him being an option off the bench that can bring some fight, defense, attack. Did a great job in the game against Mexico in terms of defending. He helped Arston a lot on the left side. But no, I don't put Diego Luna as a stock up at all or stock down. I think he earned his spot in the roster, and he's still in the A roster, in my opinion, but nothing more, nothing less. To me, the most obvious stock up is actually Chris Richards. To me, he's always been our best center back, and I know you agree with that too. We've been saying this for quite some time. But I did also understand the point of a portion of the fan base always saying, yeah, but he never really, pulled it off for the national team. He never really, stood out. It's always been a question mark with him. I think this summer that was put to rest. He was our best player, I think, throughout the entire summer. He scored 2 goals, even one against Mexico, by the way. And they weren't easy finishes, both of them, actually. Defensively, didn't make a single mistake that I can remember, at least in the Gold Cup. I'm trying to remember the friendlies with Switzerland. Maybe there was something. I can't remember right now with the 4 goals. But Chris Richards was incredible throughout the summer. And if there was any doubt, his stock has gone up to the point where he is clearly our best center back. If there was any doubt, case closed. Who's your second stock up?
I'll give you one thing on Richards. So I guess you're probably correct in the grand scheme of the fan base. My stock was really high on him, so it's like tough for me personally to say he's a massive stock up because I've been high. He was a locked-in starter. He was dialed in for me. I will say that this is kind of an added bonus. You mentioned the goals. It's really nice when you're a team like us that's going to have to go into games where we're, outmanned, and set pieces are going to have to be something that we're going to have to rely on, right? Like to win some of those games, we're going to have to go get a set piece. And I think Weston's really good in those, right? And I think we've been kind of searching because our strikers aren't great in set pieces. So we've been searching for who else can add to it. And we haven't had a center back who like really is a set piece threat since maybe like John Brooks, I guess people said Walker was, but he was never a locked in center back for me. So it's
Has
nice to
Walker scored a goal like off a header or something? I don't
maybe
remember
like
that.
one, but like people used to say that, right? I didn't really believe it, but we haven't had that like center back set piece threat to score in a while. And that's a big piece of trying to do what we're going to try to do next year. My
Just
second,
one thing, and I think Richards scored also in the Nations League final off a header against Canada.
I think you're correct. And
That
yeah,
was in the BJ year. Yeah.
and he's shown that for club a bit too. I mean, like if you watch, especially like he is a threat, like he is a threat in the air, and that's like that's a weapon, right? On top of all the great defensive stuff he's doing. My second stock up is a guy who's not, it's always a classic move by us here in these kind of camps. It's a guy who's not here. And the more and more I've thought about this tack, right, the more I've realized that there is almost a direct correlation to, I think, our offensive play being inept and Serginho Dest being obviously nowhere to be found because of injury for a long, 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 long time right now, right? And I think that like the more I think about this team, this is personal stock up, right? I think that my stock for him has gone way up because he adds a guy who can take guys on one-on-one, yes. A guy who is really competent with the ball at his feet and can connect play, right? I think a lot of our best action over the last 3-4 years is him and Weah and West connecting on the right side. It's just non-existent, right? There is no right side threat. A team, B team, doesn't matter. And I think that like we miss him, and we might miss him as much or more than anyone because honestly, like there is just something missing. There's one guy missing in our attack, even when our A team is out there, not necessarily just this camp. And I think that my stock for him is like so high. My expectations are really high if he can come back, get healthy, to what just him and bringing him on the field with that group can do to connect play. So kind of probably an off the wall one and probably a little bit of a hot take, but I'm really high on kind of him right now and what he can bring.
I'll be quick on the next one. I'm gonna go with a player that was in camp, and his stock didn't really go up much. It's just that he was talked about as a possible goalkeeper for the national team, but no one really considered him. And then it's not like Matt Freese was spectacular, but he showed that he's very useful on maybe penalty shootouts.
Yep.
And in the game, honestly, he looked more or less the level Turner has been, which was okay. Like not terrible, not great. Terrible with his feet for sure. I'd say his stock has gone up, that now there's a case for him to be in the World Cup roster. I hope we find a better goalkeeper. But it's looking more and more likely that for the World Cup, we're just going to have to play the hot hand, whoever is in form. And Matt Freese now, at least there's a case for him to be in the roster. So that's how much his stock has gone up. I'm still not convinced. He's not my starter. But again, who is? That's the problem. So Matt Freese is my stock up right there.
The shootout was great and a fun moment, and I had a blast watching it. But at the end of the day, I don't think he did anything in any other game that I wouldn't expect any professional keeper to do, And that's where but his stock has to be up, right? He went from not in the picture, and had he ever even started a game, like maybe a Jan camp or something like that? Like,
I don't think he started the January camp. I think Schulte did.
But if he does have a cap, it was like very few. And was kind of like a fringe guy, right? Of like, maybe that guy will be all right. And now all of a sudden he's emerged and he's in the picture, right? So that has to be stock up by definition. But I just don't. There's nothing yet that I've seen that tells me when Turner had his moment, right, a couple years back, it was like, whoa, this guy is stopping shots that are definitely like special. He's having, he's taking goals away. I don't know if Freese took a goal away. You know what I'm saying? Like that most keepers wouldn't.
No, he Matt Freese, the penalty shootouts was spectacular, of course. Now in the games, he didn't really concede, and besides the one that he gave the ball to Haiti, he didn't really concede any goals that were his fault. But he also didn't make a miracle save. They just made very basic saves.
And maybe and he didn't. Just to be fair to him, like I also didn't feel like there were like a ton of those chances that were 50-50. Like it was weird. Like every goal that got scored on us, I was like, yeah, I don't know what a keeper's doing with that, like, and so I don't know. I need to see more. I guess that's the moral of the story here is like, I need to see more, and he earned another chance to see more. And so I'm good with it.
Stock up. So let's go to stock down. I'm going to go first on this one here. Stocks down. Boy, there are many. There are many stocks down. I'm going to start with one guy, which is kind of weird because it's very tricky. I'm going to say it. So Mark McKenzie's stock went down because this was the camp for him to stand out like Chris Richards and
Yeah.
pretty much consolidate the center back duo for the World Cup as long as they're healthy, McKenzie and Richards. Now, of course, Tim Ream's stock is also down. It continues to go down, which technically that helps McKenzie. But I think ultimately what's going to happen is Pochettino's going to look elsewhere. So I have to put Mark McKenzie's stock down because it was a camp for him to lock himself as the starter, and it didn't happen. Now, is that on Pochettino? Is that on him? He got a shot in the friendlies. He wasn't great. Maybe Pochettino should have played him throughout the Gold Cup. He didn't. I don't know what Pochettino's seeing in practice. Regardless, I think McKenzie's stock went down. I was looking at him as a guy to finish this summer as a locked-in starter, and he most certainly is not that right now.
So it's funny with stock down because like there's a lot of guys who like we'll talk about who we don't want to see again, right? But like there's a lot of guys who I'm like, I don't think that guy's up to the level. That guy's not up to the level. Nah, he didn't have a great camp, didn't have a great game. Most of them didn't have a stock price though, Tack. Like most of them just had a low stock price coming into the summer. So it was more like valid, even if like Poch's stock might be up in Poch's like stock market. But for me, a lot of those guys, a lot of those names people might be expecting us to throw out here. Like I just didn't see a ton of movement because it was.
Well, let's name them. Ajiman, I know he was terrible. Yeah, Ajiman's stock didn't go down for me. Sebastian Berhalter I didn't think he was good either.
Berhalter, even like Freeman, who's a young player, right? Like really wasn't much movement on that stock, up or down for me, right? He could move up. He's a young guy. He's got time, but like I didn't feel like drastically better about him or even worse about him at the end of the day. Like as I did in May, right? In terms of like, oh, this guy's on the roster. Let's see what he does. So and those are the main ones, right? So my first one is a guy who, to me, this is a guy who has been in the picture now for 2 to 3 years, but he's always kind of been on the fringe. He's always been a guy who it's like, this guy can provide some depth. This guy could be a really nice depth piece for us. And it's still an open question mark. And that guy's Luca De La Torre. And it's like, can Luca be a backup midfielder? Like, I feel like everybody's been asking that question for like 3 years. And the answer is kind of fluctuated. Yes, he can. Oh, wow, that was nice. To me, this camp established that where he's at in his career right now, he is not ready to be a backup midfielder. If he's playing in the World Cup, we're in trouble. Right? I don't want him back up, started like nothing. Like he cannot be on the field. That's what this Gold Cup proved to me. He was really outclassed in like games versus Guatemala and Costa Rica and Haiti. Like he looked like was like a USL level player. It was wild.
Yeah. Didn't really look great at all.
And it wasn't shambolic, it just was like, man, I expected more. In this level of game, I expected this guy to look better, right? And he didn't, which points me to saying, yeah, that's probably not a guy that should be on the roster.
So so Luca De La Torre and Mark McKenzie. Now the next one is an interesting one for me. I didn't want to put him as stock down because it feels like every time there's a camp, his stock goes down, and it's Johnny because it's not anything. Well, he didn't play well in the friendlies. That's the first thing. But nobody really did. We can put it that way. And then in the Gold Cup, I was expecting him, all right, just like it happened to Tillman, you'll stand out, and then his stock will probably go up or stay the same. Now, he's getting a big move to Atletico Madrid, for example, right? And a player starting for Atletico Madrid to start for the U.S. men's national team, it's a no-brainer. But Johnny didn't play well in the friendlies. And then, unfortunately, during the Gold Cup, first game or two, he had a flu, and then an ankle injury that he was dealing with Real Betis, which is why he was rested before the Conference League final. It re-aggravated, and he wasn't able to play. He wasn't even able to make the bench anymore for the tournament. That is bad luck, but the poor performances in the friendlies are not bad luck. Props to him for one thing. he could have just called out and not came to camp because of the ankle injury. But he still went there, and even with the injury, he stayed till the last day. But it's hard not to put his stock down. Now, that's not to say he can't make the World Cup roster. I am pretty sure he's going to get more chances. And I mean, if the guy's starting for Atletico Madrid, you have to persist on him till the very end, right? Keep trying until it reaches the point. It's like, I'm sorry, it's not working. You can't come to the World Cup. You have to persist on him. But it's hard to say that his stock didn't take a hit this summer, because this was his summer, supposed to be his summer with Tillman, right? And at the end, just the same way I mentioned Mackenzie, it's similar situation to Johnny.
Yeah, and the problem is you're running low on camps quick. Like it's the time that you have to prove yourself is running out. And to your point, like he didn't prove himself, and then he didn't really get a chance after that for, circumstances he really couldn't control. He was my 2A, but I had a 2B loaded because I had a feeling he might be your 2 as well. My 2B, this one might surprise some people, is Tyler Adams. And here's the why. I think Tyler Adams, when he came back from injury, scored against Mexico, right? I think there was like momentum behind him that's like he's dialed, he's locked in. We cannot play without Tyler Adams. Now, what I saw in this camp, and I don't know who else we play, right? We just talked about how Johnny's not ready, right? Like, so I don't know. Like, he probably still plays and is going to play next summer. But my personal stock is down on him because I went from being like, yeah, I get Adams has some weaknesses, but his strengths override those. And this is one of the first times in this camp I consistently was feeling like, gosh, he's just, especially in the Mexico game, we were in a 4-4-2, and he kept getting drawn out of position. There were these massive gaps in the middle of the park because he's like, you're 26, 27, and you're like undisciplined with positioning. Like,
he overcommits. He overcommits very often.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but we got to figure that out, right? I mean, you've been a pro for a decade now. Like, you've got to be able to, in a game where your team clearly wants to, absorb pressure and play, park the bus, you've got to be able to play more disciplined, because as soon as one player attack gets out, this is how the goal happened. He got drawn all the way toward the sideline, left a huge hole that Mexico played the ball into, and that led to the goal, right? That was the initiating moment, and there was just no need for him to get drawn out like that. And it's becoming one of those things where, like, okay, we know he's not good on the ball, right? But we also know he's going to counteract that by hopefully making enough plays, cleaning up messes that it doesn't matter, and it's going to counteract that. But if you're also going to make these big errors that lead to big chances, that's another negative in the con column, right? That counteracts some of that positive stuff. And it really becomes a game of like, is he now like that? That's the question I'm asking, right? Are we best with him on the field in these big games where we need to have disciplined defense, right? It's not going to be about getting out and pressing and all of that stuff when we play.
Talk about the goals against the Dutch too in the 2022 World Cup.
Correct. And it's like, so now you have this track record. And there's way more than that too, right? Like we could go through a lot of other moments where he's really been at fault and been poor. Jamaica last World Cup qualifying cycle, right? That was like him getting overextended that led to that, awesome goal he scored. The point is, to me, he went from like dead set lock has to be on the field to me, there's at least a question mark now. Like, are we best aligned with him on the field, or is there another alignment that's going to be best for us?
I still think yes. I don't think his stock moves too much in being a starter, but you probably need a guy that's more tactically disciplined next to him. Surprise, surprise, you might actually need a guy next to him that is as defensive. Maybe Tanner Tessman has to play there as a CDM with him in a double pivot. Maybe if you can get Johnny to get things going, Johnny and Tyler, because then Johnny can position himself and protect the back line while Tyler pulls some nonsense like that. I don't put him.
If Johnny was playing up to his ability, I think this would be a really interesting combo right now. That is there a midfield alignment that's Johnny instead of Tyler and other guys, right? But Johnny just hasn't proven it. So that's the problem, is like 2A and 2B for me were both, center defensive, holding midfielder types. And that's a problem, right? And that's why you're right. Like Tyler probably still plays. But to me, there's an opening that Johnny can step into right now, because I didn't think he had a great camp on the whole. I'll just be honest. Like especially once again, the games that mattered for him were Costa Rica, Mexico, the 2 friendlies, and I just thought overall he was pretty poor when he was on the field in those
I
types of
think the friendlies he didn't play, but the other ones he did. Yeah, the
correct. But
friendlies he was out.
those are the only quality games that to me matter. I don't care how he does against Guatemala. I don't care how Haiti. Those games didn't matter. I was really on the lookout for, okay, are we going to see him play in these quality games, and what's he going to look like? And to me, what he looked like against Costa Rica and Mexico is kind of a bit of a mess and all over the place.
I thought you were going to say
you had goods too, but you had a lot of bads.
I thought you were going to say Brendan Aronson because
I stock's pretty low on Aronson coming in. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I don't think he's a roster player anymore. It's weird because he's technically a Premier League guy right now with Leeds and
yeah.
But I was gonna maybe mention Brendan, but at the same time, I'm like, I had him as a guy fighting for a roster spot, and I think depending on injuries, he's still a guy fighting for a roster spot. So, just ineffective when he's on, just kind of like hustles, and it was a bit. Paxton Aronson, I didn't put his stock down because he's still trying to also fight for a roster spot, and I think he's still fighting for a roster spot. Like, didn't see anything good or bad from him. Didn't really see much at all. But it's like you said, maybe in the Pochettino stock, Paxton went down, but we're talking about ours, not his.
Correct.
Now we went through the stocks up, stocks down. Now we do like more of an analysis. Actually, before we do the big positive and big negative, besides Ajiman, because it's pretty clear, is there one player that you saw in camp that you don't want to see the national team ever again? Whether it is an A or B roster, not even C, I'm not going to go that far, A or B roster. Ajiman, obviously, that's everyone's favorite pick, and I agree with. But let's skip on him. Is there any player that you don't want to see ever again?
Yeah, this is a hot name out there for this for sure. So I'm not going to break any ground. Arston just isn't good enough to be a left back, or to be a winger, right? He's more of an offensive player to me. Like, he literally has the exact same. This is going to sound hot, but I'll roll it back. I'll come around and make it make sense for everybody. You're all going to go, what? He has the exact same strengths and weaknesses as Sergiño Dest, right? He's just so much worse at the strengths. So see how I brought it back there? Mm-hmm. He's just so much worse at the strengths that, why are we I get why we sacrifice Dest, right? I get why we put a guy on the field who's a little worse defensively, and we're willing to game plan around that, right? And pull guys over there to help and support, because he's, electric with the ball, right? I mean, at any point he can be a guy who scores a goal or makes a play that leads to a goal. Arston, he has all the downside, but none of the upside. So I don't even see what the future is for him with the national team. I wish him the best in his professional career. I see no future with the national team. I have no interest in seeing him on any tier, any level. Jan Camp, if you want to bring him in, then I'm all good. Past that, I'm straight.
For me, it's really tough to pick a player outside of the two that you mentioned. Those are the easy picks, right? Those two. And I thought about it a lot, and I thought about maybe Tim Ream. And I was like, because, we're 1 year away from the World Cup, and he's declining every month that we see him. He looks slower, worse, even worse on the ball at times, which is quite a surprise. And even he had that stupid comment about shame on you for making it to the final after being freaking Guatemala. But at the same time, the question is in regards to roster. And I don't have an issue if Tim Ream ends up in a World Cup roster. I have an issue with him being a starter. In the roster, I don't really have an issue. Of course, if you're in the roster, there's a chance that you'll play. But I do think there are circumstances in the World Cup, if you're holding a lead, put a back three towards the end, and you put in Tim Ream, I don't think that's a problem if you're sitting deep, right? He won't get exposed with that. So I thought about it a lot, and I think the player that I wanted to mention is one that you put as a stock down. It was Luca de la Torre. I don't really see the point of having him anymore at the national team. He's no longer young, right? He's about 26, 27. He's regressed in his club career. And with the national team, he didn't look good in this camp at all. And we have a lot of options in the midfield, a lot of options that were left out in this camp. And you can even go towards options that are very, very deep. Like, for example, Aiden Morris, right? He's not an A roster guy, he's a B, and he's looked a lot better, right, than a Luca de la Torre right now. Luca de la Torre managed to look worse than Sebastian Berhalter, a player that I also kind of don't feel like seeing much more in the national team. He reminds me a lot of Kellen Acosta, a lot of fight,
Yes.
Some good free kicks
Bogan,
here and there.
Areola, Costa, not exact comps, but like it's that I was just gonna say that breed of player where it's like they're gritty, they're old school, and it's like, but they're not good enough. Like if we have
Yeah.
aspiration, it's not good enough, right?
Yeah, but I still thought De La Torre was worse than
He
Berhalter, for
was. Oh,
example.
he
And
definitely was.
and Berhalter's a bit younger for whatever that's worth. I'd probably not want to see either one of them, but if I had to pick one, I'll pick Luca De La Torre. It's been enough. He regressed, and that's enough for me. Now let's go to the big negative and big positive camp. What's your big positive? Is there any from you?
My big positive tack is that I personally now know who does not belong out of that group. That is the biggest positive that I take out
They
of
were
the
exposed. That's your positive. They were exposed.
correct. It's like, okay, we tried it. We tried it for a lot of minutes with some of them. And I have a really good idea of like who does not belong of the guys that we tried a lot. So, and that is a positive. You cut guys out. And like, I'll get to my big negative in a second, which is going to kind of play along with that. But that's my big positive.
My big positive is this. We're going to go to the World Cup with Pochettino, whether we like it or not at this point. When he was hired, it was a massive hire. I was overly excited about it. So far, it's been a complete disaster. But I still firmly believe he is a good coach based on the work he has done in the past. And if anything, he looked frustrated after this camp. And I hope it's a wake up call where he'll start taking this job. Not saying he's not taking it seriously, but that's kind of the impression so far, that he'll actually start scouting players 24/7, possibly recruit some dual nationals that he should be recruiting. Hopefully, it was a wake up call for Pochettino. Obviously, and this was a positive, right? So obviously, this positive is reliant on him actually seeing this, right? Maybe months from now, this positive was bullshit. But I'm choosing to believe that Pochettino is frustrated and he'll put in the work to fix this team. There's still a full year. It's still possible, right? The World Cup's not tomorrow. If it was tomorrow, I'd be very concerned, but it's not. So the big positive to me is that if you're going to screw things over, 1 year prior to the World Cup is probably the best time. Now, with that said, the big negative of this camp, who you want me to go first on this one?
Yeah, keep cooking.
Okay, let me keep
Back to me.
cooking on this one. I thought that it was almost a waste of a summer. And if what I just said as a positive doesn't happen, of Pochettino waking up, it 100% was a waste of a summer. Because even the thing we talked about, like Richard's stock up, now he's a star. He was going to start regardless. Like his stock went up
Right.
towards the perception of other people, but he is who he is. It didn't make him a better player this summer. He is that player that you saw, a very good player. So even the positives that we talked about, none of it really matters if Pochettino doesn't wake up and actually turn this ship around. So the big negative is this was Pochettino didn't get hired till halfway through the cycle because this incompetent federation that we have took 6 months to rehire the clown that was in charge in the previous cycle, only for the results to be terrible. They fire him last summer in 2024. Then they hire Pochettino 2 years into the cycle. So he has 2 years to prepare the team. This was the one camp that he had over a month with the player. So it was the camp that he would be able to actually implement his ideas, get to know the player, and we would play against decent to good opponents like Turkey, Switzerland, and Mexico, and a lot of bad opponents, which is also good because you have the ball a lot, you can build chemistry, build your confidence against these terrible opponents. But we didn't get any of that because we were missing most of our players. And even with that, we didn't really learn too much about these guys besides just to confirm a lot of the suspicious and a lot of the doubts we had about them. Now they were confirmed that they're not very good players. So overall, it was mostly a waste of summer unless it woke up Pochettino.
And the scary thing, I'm just going to build on yours before I give mine. The scary thing is there's a lot of risk in what happened this summer. And here's why. When you as a coach have 30, 40 days with a group of players, and if you think about it, some of these guys were in March camp. A lot of these guys were in the Jan camp, which I think is a couple weeks long, right? Like that January camp's decently long. There's a lot of trust built up with Poch and some of these players. and Poch has had Balogun in like one camp or something. Like there is risk that he is building, a connection with guys, and it's going to supersede logic. It's going to supersede player eval. It's going to, because as coaches, we do get emotional sometimes. I know this guy's going to go to battle for me. I know what he's like. I trust him in training. Now, God, I hope he watches film and can get past that. But there just is always risk. We've seen it for years. You see it with all different national teams. There's risk that now certain guys are Poch's guys, and that is going to lead to too much playing time, too much opportunity, roster spots, and it could be a disaster, right? Like that's just to build on your negative, right? Not only do we not get anything out of it, we actually take negatives away and move forward with negatives. So I'm a little worried about that. My big negative, my positive was I now know who doesn't belong. My big negative is I'm not sure Poch does, right?
So it's a concern. It's a concern.
That's my negative. Like I now know who doesn't belong, but I'm not sure Poch knows who doesn't belong. And to add a couple more things here, to me, Poch is the big negative. I was really my biggest takeaway from the whole summer. I said this at the beginning of the year and things to look out for. I think on one of our preview shows. What is Poch going to be like managing a knockout tournament? Because that's what we get to see. We get to see group play, 3 games. We get to see knockout rounds. Hopefully we get to see a couple. We got to see 3. How does he rotate the roster? How does he set the team up? How does he adjust tactically for opponents? How in-game does he manage the team and adjust, right? We were, on here or whatever a couple days ago talking about that Guatemala game in-game. And he's like, gets a lead against a way worse team and parks the ball. Like, what are we doing? It was just baffling. Subs, right? He's subbing at the 80-something minute with tired legs. He didn't rotate, Tack. Like, he didn't rotate. Even if Ajimong is your guy and Berhalter's your guy, rotate them out in the Haiti game. We'd clinched a spot. If that's really your dudes, let them rest. You're going to have to go play 3 games in 8 days if you're in the final. And he ran all those dudes into the ground 80-plus minutes. So I don't know. I have no confidence in how he's going to manage a tournament. I saw nothing. Saw nothing with his player evaluation, his setup, roster, nothing. I have 0 Poch positives right now, Tack. And that's a problem because I thought this was going to be a manager that was going to raise the ceiling, right, and be tactically really strong and good at all this stuff. And I saw a lot of the same problems I had with Berhalter, maybe worse in some ways, honestly.
Yeah, the in-game management was abysmal in every time. We can't really think of one sub or tactical change that he's made in a game where you're like, crap, he adjusted right there. Incredible. He won us the game. What a change. He completely changed the dynamic of the game with that. If anything, what we saw was many times, every time he adjusted something, we looked worse. Whether it was tactically, like you talked about, Guatemala, let's soak up pressure and counterattack them. How are you going to counterattack Guatemala when your wingers are sitting super deep to help defend the fullbacks, help the fullbacks in terms of defending, and Ajiman's the guy up top that just whatever ball you throw, he can't hold it or he just falls on the ground. It's just these things that you're just Pochettino understands the game. He's not stupid. So
Sure.
Do you not understand your player pool? Do you not know who you have? What are you trying to do? All of that was terrible. Also, persistent on the line.
He's subbing Downs in with Ajimong. Ajimong's tired, right? Even as much as I don't like him,
they're not good.
That's fine. But let's just even ignore that. He's exhausted and not good. But let Downs come in and be a spark off the bench, but the space is clogged, Tack. And then people are like, I didn't see much out of Downs. It's I don't know. What do you we don't play a 4-4-2. We don't train a 4-4-2. Those guys have never played together. You're just throwing them on the field together. And he did that, I think, maybe 3 times.
Tactically speaking, and unfortunately, I can't really show this on screen right now. We defend on a 4-4-2, right, against Mexico. So 2 lines of 4 and the 2 guys up top.
Right.
Mexico attacks centrally a lot. If they did the proper scouting of Mexico, if I was able to see that when I was scouting Mexico in a very non-professional way, they attacked very centrally. Nevertheless, that's where their first goal came from, right? Centrally. It wasn't a cross, it was central. And even throughout the game, I could be wrong. I don't think Mexico was chucking in crosses too much. They were always trying to penetrate through the middle, which ultimately led to multiple long shots, right? Um, my point is, if you're going to do that, we should have probably defended a bit more narrow and had like two guys up top that could actually counterattack. We didn't do that. I mean, I know I'm talking, it's very easy to talk about this after the game, but if you guys go watch the preview before the game, I had Jack on from, what's his name, from Deadball TV, and we talked about how Mexico attacks very central rather than through wide areas. And didn't seem like it was something that was addressed. And if we just defended a bit more narrow, you wouldn't have had Diego Luna maybe sit so deep. Then maybe you would have a bit more power to counterattack them because our team was kind of harmless. Couldn't really do anything. Like
Sure.
we talk about how Mexico didn't look great, sure, but we didn't do anything. We had like that one ball, which was the set piece, and then we had one ball where Cesar Montes messed up and Alex Freeman escaped out of nowhere and almost scored with the ball over the top. But outside of that, we didn't really do anything. We were a terrible team throughout the game. So those are the big negatives, big positives. Pochettino, we talked about him enough. In-game management, terrible. Starting 11, one issue I had too was I very often have a problem when a coach goes with the philosophy of if it ain't broken, don't fix it with the lineup, where we were beating these terrible teams and eventually you play Mexico, which was a better team. And I also, if you look back at it, the way we played, we probably would have lost to Canada in the semifinals if they didn't have that upset beforehand. But anyhow,
Can I give you my analogy for this? I came up with an analogy.
Yeah.
Let's say every day, right? You were driving from Tampa to Orlando for a while, right? For your job, and yeah, you were doing that commute. So let's say that
I was doing that.
You were, right? It's not, yeah. But anyway, let's say that, day one, you go and your check engine light turns on. You're like, oh, crap, check engine. Well, I made it. I made it to Orlando.
It ain't broken.
And then you go back, you're like, well, engine light's still on. I made it again. And then you do, like, eventually, right? Like, the check engine light is yelling at you. Something is wrong. No, you might not lose the game right now against Guatemala, but something is wrong. And, like, to me, it was just like red flashing check engine lights all throughout the tourney that were like, we need to adjust. We need to do something different. We need different personnel. We need different tactics. We need to be better than this, right? You can't expect this to lead to beating Canada and Mexico. We got really lucky. Canada got a red, right? As funny as it is, and as much as everybody wants to rag on Jesse, we got lucky. They got a red. They weren't going to lose that game if they didn't get a red. We would have been out against Canada, if you want my honest opinion. Again, and that would have been really sad. We got lucky. We got past them. And then all of a sudden, the check engine light turned into a broken down car against Mexico, right? So that's my analogy. I have one other Poch thing for you, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So I've got this thing, right, where like this is my best case for Poch. He is using this summer, right? He has to evaluate some players, etc. Maybe he's off on some of them. But at the end of the day, he sees a broken soccer culture, a broken national team. And what a lot of coaches do, right, is they break it down to build it up, right? And the positive view of this, right, if you really want to be optimistic, and I don't believe in this, just so you know, but it is the optimistic view, is that he is currently breaking it down, right? He's got 1 year and he's breaking it down. And he said there is some stuff. He's sending smoke signals through his comments in the press conferences saying nobody has an open spot. Who are you talking about? The regulars. There's no regulars here. So the positive is that, yes, this is all a ploy that where he's trying to get guys back in and motivate them, right? Whether or not it's working, whether or not it's even real, I don't know. But that is the optimistic kind of viewpoint. We're going to learn very quickly whether or not that's true, Tack, right? It's not going to take very long. Like you're going to see in the next camp and the camp after, if this kind of stuff is going to take root and take hold, and he's actually going to be able to bring these, either one, is he going to bring the talented guys back in? And then when he does is he able to get a different level out of them? Does this motivational tactic, if it's even a thing, does it work? Is it happening?
We'll find out very soon. The next camp is in September, and just the roster itself will tell us a lot about what's going on. And then obviously starting 11 and how we play against two tough opponents, actually, Japan and South Korea.
And this is my last note before we rate, and it's a question for you. I asked this question to Will last night on his channel, MLS Moves. If Tack just took a premier, let's say Tack right now, or Tack, let's say Poch could take a Premier League job right now, but you're in charge, right? You get to either press the button to send him on his way. And you do not get to pick the replacement, though. That's the problem, right? You have to live with what the Fed chooses, or you pick the button that says keep Poch in place. I'll keep him for another year and go forward. What are you doing currently? Like, where's your head at with him? Is he out the door to dictate, or is he staying?
The fact that I can't pick a replacement, I'll probably just keep him. Because my fear is that they call a guy that's very familiar with this player pool back, a specific guy God. I mean, like a guy that would probably take the job very quickly. So even though he's with Chicago, I'm pretty sure Berhalter would accept it and take the job. So I would just keep Pochettino and hope he sorts it out for a year. I have to assume that he wants to do well in the World Cup. This is kind of important for his resume, for his legacy, for everything. But anyhow, Adam, thank you very much for coming along once again. Thank you, everyone that watched the full episode. If you made it this far, don't forget to drop a like and follow Adam on X. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.